Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching death approach through the cold darkness of space. The Vexthara fleet moved like a cancer across the stars, their biomechanical ships pulsing with organic light as they closed in for the kill. Each vessel was the size of a city, grown rather than built, and they hungered for human flesh. 3 million people. That was all that remained of humanity. Once 12 billion souls had called Earth home. Now those 12 refugee ships floating near the dying star held everyone left alive in the universe who could call themselves human. Children pressed their faces against the viewing ports, too young to understand they would never grow up. Parents held them close, knowing there was nowhere left to run. The Vexthara had been hunting humans for 3 years now. They were not like other alien species that humanity had encountered in their short time among the stars. The Vexthara did not want territory or resources. They wanted to play with their food before eating it. They found humans amusing because humans refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds. Most species begged for mercy when the Vexthara came. Humans just kept fighting. Admiral Marcus Torres walked onto the observation deck, his uniform wrinkled and his face showing the weight of leading humanity's final retreat. In his hand, he carried a tablet that glowed with the message every human commander had been dreading. Sarah saw his expression and felt her stomach drop. "Protocol Lazarus?" she asked. Torres nodded slowly. "All remaining military assets are to engage the enemy. No retreat, no surrender. We make our last stand here." Sarah looked back at the approaching fleet. The Vexthara had defeated civilizations that made humanity look like children playing with sticks. Their biotechnology adapted to every weapon humans threw at them. Their warriors regenerated from wounds that would kill a human instantly. Their tactics were perfect because they had conquered 1,000 worlds and learned from each victory. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked. 6 hours until they reach weapons range. Maybe 7 if we're lucky. On the refugee ships, families were saying goodbye. Scientists destroyed their research rather than let it fall into alien hands. Artists recorded final messages for no one to hear. The last humans in the universe prepared to become extinct. But deep in the archives of New Geneva Station, Dr. Elena Vasquez was not preparing to die. She was reading old books from Earth, searching through humanity's violent history for something the military computers had missed. The tablet in front of her displayed wars from before humans had ever seen the stars. Ancient battles fought with swords and shields. Honor codes written in blood. Challenges issued between warriors when armies were too tired to fight. Elena's fingers moved across the screen as she read about single combat. In the old days, when 2 armies faced each other and neither side wanted to lose thousands of soldiers, champions would fight one-on-one. The winner's army would claim victory. The loser's army would retreat. It saved lives and settled disputes with honor. She laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. The idea was insane. The Vexthara were 12 feet tall with armor plating grown into their skin. They had reflexes faster than human thought and could regenerate lost limbs. No human had ever survived single combat with a Vexthara warrior. But Elena kept reading. The ancient codes were clear. A formal challenge could not be refused without losing honor. Even the most advanced civilizations often kept their old traditions. If the Vexthara followed the same pattern, they might still honor the ancient laws of combat. Elena grabbed her research and ran through the corridors of New Geneva Station. Emergency lights flashed red as the station prepared for battle. Soldiers checked their weapons, knowing they would die but determined to take some aliens with them. She found Commander Chen and Admiral Torres in the command center, staring at tactical displays that showed nothing but death approaching. "I have an idea," Elena said, breathing hard from running. "It's crazy, but it might work." Torres looked at her with tired eyes. "At this point, Doctor, crazy might be all we have left." Elena spread her research across the command table. Ancient texts from Earth's history appeared on the screens around them. "Single combat. Challenge their champion to a duel." Sarah stared at the information. "You want us to challenge the deadliest species in the universe to a sword fight?" "Not a sword fight. A formal combat challenge. According to galactic law and the old warrior codes, if we issue a proper challenge, they have to accept it or lose face in front of their entire species. If our champion wins, they grant us safe passage. If we lose, at least we die with honor instead of being hunted down like animals." Torres shook his head. "No human could defeat a Vexthara warrior in single combat." "Maybe not," Elena said. "But we've already lost the war. This gives us a chance, even if it's a small one, and if nothing else, it buys time for the refugee ships to get further away. The command center fell silent except for the hum of machines and the distant sound of ships preparing for battle. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone knew they were going to die. But Elena's plan offered something they had lost long ago. Hope, even if it was foolish hope. Torres looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Vexithera fleet. How do we issue this challenge? Quantum broadcast on all frequencies, formal language following the old protocols. We demand single combat with their greatest champion according to the ancient laws of honorable warfare. Sarah walked to the communication station. If we do this and somehow our champion loses, what happens to the refugees? Elena checked her notes. According to the codes, an honorable defeat in single combat grants the losing side a warrior's death instead of torture. The Vexithara respect courage. They might let the refugees go quickly instead of hunting them for sport. It was not much hope, but it was more hope than they had 5 minutes ago. Torres made his decision. Do it. Send the challenge. As Sarah's fingers moved over the communication controls, the message went out across space to the approaching Vexithera fleet. Somewhere in the darkness, alien minds would receive humanity's desperate gamble. They would either laugh at the foolishness of the weak humans, or they would remember their own ancient honor and accept the challenge. Either way, humanity's fate would be decided not by fleets and armies, but by two warriors facing each other in combat. Just like in the old days on Earth when honor still mattered and a single fight could save thousands of lives, the message was sent. Now they could only wait and see if the deadliest species in the universe still remembered what honor meant. The response came faster than anyone expected. War Prime Kethival, commander of the Vexithera fleet, appeared on the main screen of New Geneva Station. He was enormous even by alien standards, standing 12 feet tall with biomechanical implants gleaming under his ship's lights. His forearms ended in claws that could tear through steel, and his eyes glowed with the intelligence of a predator who had never known defeat. When Kethival spoke, his voice was like grinding metal mixed with the sound of dying worlds. Humans, he said, and the word dripped with amusement. You surprise us. In 1,000 years of conquest, no species has ever issued a formal challenge to the Vexithera hegemony. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood beside Commander Chen and Admiral Torres, her hands shaking as she watched the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Consider their desperate plan. Behind Kethival, she could see other Vexithara warriors moving through their ship. Each one was a living weapon, evolved for war and enhanced with biotechnology that made them nearly impossible to kill. You know the old laws, Kethival continued. Single combat. Champion against champion. Winner claims victory for their people. We had not thought any species still remembered such ancient traditions. Torres stepped forward. Do you accept our challenge, War Prime? Kethival's laugh was like the sound of bones breaking. Accept, human. You offer us entertainment we have not enjoyed in centuries. Most species we encounter simply die quietly. Some beg for mercy. A few try to run. But you offer to dance with death itself. The War Prime leaned closer to the camera, his glowing eyes studying the humans on the screen. Very well. We accept your challenge according to the ancient protocols. I will serve as champion for the Vexithera hegemony. You will choose your own champion. The combat will take place on neutral ground. Elena felt her heart racing. The first part of the plan had worked. Now came the hard part. What are the terms if we win? Chen asked. If your champion defeats me in single combat, which has never happened, we will grant your refugee ships 1 full solar cycle to leave our territory. You will have time to find a new home far from Vexithara space. And if we lose? Kethival's expression became almost respectful. If your champion falls with honor, we will grant your people a warrior's death. Quick and clean. No torture, no games. You will die as soldiers should die. It was more than humanity had any right to expect. The Vexithara were known for keeping their defeated enemies alive for years, using them for experiments and entertainment. A quick death was a mercy beyond price. Where will the combat take place? Torres asked. The abandoned world of Kepler 442b lies between our fleets. It has breathable atmosphere and solid ground. Our ships will witness the combat from orbit. Your champion and mine will fight until one can no longer continue. Elena stepped forward. What weapons are allowed? Kethival seemed pleased by the question. Any weapons your champion can carry. Any armor they can wear. The ancient protocols place no limits on equipment. only that the fight must be between two individuals with no outside help. The transmission ended, leaving the command center of New Geneva Station in stunned silence. They had bought time, but at a terrible price. Somewhere among the 3 million humans scattered across their refugee ships, they needed to find someone who could face the deadliest warrior in the galaxy and somehow survive. "We need to call a meeting of all ship commanders," Torres said. "Every military officer, every scientist, anyone who might have an idea about how to make this work." Within hours, the command center was filled with humanity's remaining leaders. They came from the refugee ships by shuttle, each one carrying the weight of their people's survival. Ship captains who had fought hopeless battles against the Vex Thara, scientists who had studied alien biology, soldiers who had seen their friends die in the endless retreat across the galaxy. Dr. Martinez, the expedition's chief biologist, was the first to speak. "I've studied Vexithera physiology from battlefield samples. Their bone structure is 3 times denser than human bone. Their muscle fibers are enhanced with biomechanical implants that give them strength no human could match. Their reaction time is enhanced by neural implants that process information faster than human thought." "What about weapons?" asked Captain Rodriguez from the cargo ship New Hope. "Our plasma rifles are explosives?" "Their bioarmor adapts to energy weapons," Martinez continued. "After the first few shots, they become almost immune to plasma fire. Kinetic weapons work better, but you need to hit vital organs through armor that's stronger than our best military plating." The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. They were asking one human being to fight something that was stronger, faster, and tougher than anything humanity had ever faced. It was suicide. "Maybe that's not the point," said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see Colonel Jake Morrison, a veteran of the war against the Vexthara. He was not impressive to look at. Middle-aged, scarred from battle, with a mechanical arm replacing the one he had lost to alien weapons. But every soldier in the room knew his reputation. "Explain, Colonel," Torres said. Morrison walked to the front of the room, his mechanical arm whirring softly with each movement. "I fought the Vexithara in close combat. Not by choice, but when my ship was boarded during the Battle of Proxima Station, I was trapped in a cargo hold with one of their warriors for almost an hour." "How did you survive?" Elena asked. Morrison's smile was cold and sharp. "I didn't try to win. I tried to hurt the bastard as much as possible before it killed me. Used everything in that cargo hold as a weapon. Broken metal, chemical containers, emergency tools. Kept attacking even when it should have been over." "What happened?" "The alien retreated. Not because it was afraid of dying, but because it had never faced something that refused to act like prey. I think I confused it more than I hurt it." Elena studied Morrison's scarred face and mechanical arm. "You're volunteering to be our champion. I'm the only one here who has fought a Vexithara warrior and lived to tell about it. That makes me the closest thing to an expert we have." Torres looked around the room at the faces of humanity's survivors. Scientists, soldiers, ship captains, and refugees, all of them looking for hope in a situation that had no rational solution. "The combat is in 18 hours, Torres said finally. "If you're going to do this, Colonel, we need to prepare." Morrison nodded. "Then let's get started. And remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to prove that humans don't die easy." The preparation began immediately. In the armory of New Geneva Station, Colonel Jake Morrison stood surrounded by humanity's most advanced weapons. Plasma rifles that could melt through steel, energy shields that could stop a missile, power armor that enhanced strength and speed, all of it useless against an enemy that adapted to everything humans could throw at it. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched as Morrison picked up weapon after weapon, testing their weight and balance. His mechanical arm moved with precise efficiency, but she could see him thinking through scenarios that all ended the same way. The Vexthara champion would be faster, stronger, and nearly impossible to kill. "What about the Mark 7 power armor?" suggested Captain Rodriguez. "It's our best protection." Morrison shook his head. "Too bulky. Kethaval will move like lightning. Heavy armor will just slow me down and give him bigger targets to hit." He set down an advanced plasma rifle and picked up an older kinetic weapon. "This is more like it," Elena frowned. "That's an antique. A modified M4 rifle from the old Earth military. Why would you choose something so primitive?" "Because it's simple," Morrison said, checking the weapon's mechanisms. "Plasma rifles need power cells and cooling systems. Lots of parts that can break or malfunction. This fires metal bullets with chemical propellant. Point and shoot. No fancy electronics for the Vexthara biotechnology to interfere with. Dr. Martinez, who had been studying Vexthara biology, joined them in the armory. Colonel, I've been analyzing combat footage from previous encounters. The Vexthara warriors have vulnerable points where their bioarmor is thinner, joint areas, connection points for their implants. But you would need to hit targets the size of coins while they're moving at superhuman speed. Morrison nodded, slinging the rifle across his back. What else? Their regeneration ability has limits. They can heal from most wounds, but it takes energy and time. If you could inflict multiple injuries faster than they can heal, you might be able to slow them down. Might. Morrison repeated with a bitter smile. Doc, we both know this is a suicide mission. I'm not going down there expecting to win. I'm going down there to show that bastard what a human looks like when there's nothing left to lose. Elena watched Morrison select his equipment with methodical calm. Instead of advanced armor, he chose basic Kevlar protection. Instead of energy weapons, he took the old rifle and extra ammunition. Instead of high-tech gadgets, he picked up a combat knife that looked like it had been forged on Earth decades ago. That knife belonged to your grandfather, didn't it? Elena asked, recognizing it from Morrison's military file. Korean War. He carried it through 3 years of fighting and brought it home. My father took it to Vietnam. I carried it through the colony wars before the Vexthara showed up. Morrison slid the knife into a sheath on his belt. Figured it was time for it to see one more war. Admiral Torres entered the armory with grim news. The Vexthara fleet is moving into position around Kepler 442b. Long-range sensors show they're setting up some kind of viewing formation. This isn't just a duel to them. It's entertainment. Morrison finished his equipment check and turned to face the assembled officers. Good, let them watch. Let them see what humans do when someone threatens our families. The next few hours passed quickly. The refugee ships moved into position at a safe distance from Kepler 442b. Their holds filled with parents trying to explain to their children why Colonel Morrison was going to fight a monster. On New Geneva Station, the remaining crew prepared Morrison's transport shuttle while he went through final preparations. Elena found Morrison in the station's small chapel, sitting alone in the front pew. He wasn't praying, just staring at the simple cross mounted on the wall. She sat beside him without saying anything. You don't have to do this, she said finally. Yes, I do. Morrison's voice was quiet, but firm. Every person on those refugee ships is counting on me to buy them time. Every child who might grow up to see humanity rebuild. Every parent who wants to see their kids live free. This is the only chance we have. Even if it's almost no chance at all. Morrison smiled, and for a moment he looked like the young soldier he had been before the war. Doc, you want to know a secret? Humans have been fighting impossible odds since we first picked up sticks and threw rocks at things that wanted to eat us. We didn't get to the stars by playing it safe. Elena nodded, understanding something she hadn't before. Morrison wasn't going to Kepler 442b to win a fight. He was going there to prove that humanity would never surrender, no matter how hopeless things became. The shuttle ride to Kepler 442b was silent. Morrison sat in the passenger compartment, checking his equipment one final time. The rifle was loaded with armor-piercing rounds. The knife was sharp enough to cut through bone. The Kevlar vest would protect him from some impacts, but not from the claws of a 12-foot-tall alien warrior. As they approached the planet, Morrison looked out the shuttle's window at the Vexthara fleet, arranged in perfect formation around the world. Hundreds of biomechanical ships pulsed with organic light, each one filled with aliens who had come to watch a human die. In the distance, he could see the human refugee ships, tiny specks of metal carrying the last hope of his species. The shuttle pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, looked back at Morrison. Colonel, we're approaching the landing site. Are you ready? Morrison stood up and walked to the shuttle's rear door. Through the small window, he could see the barren surface of Kepler 442b. Rocky ground stretched to the horizon under the light of alien suns. In the center of the landing area, energy barriers marked the boundaries of the combat arena. Lieutenant, Morrison said, when this is over, you get back to the refugee ships as fast as this shuttle can fly. Don't wait to see what happens to me. Sir, I could stay. Provide support, Morrison shook his head. Against the rules. Ancient protocols say it has to be champion against champion. No outside help. He checked his rifle one more time. Besides, your job is to make sure someone survives to remember what happened. Here, the shuttle touched down on the rocky surface of Kepler 442b. Morrison took a deep breath of the recycled air in his helmet and checked his suit's life support systems. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, but he wasn't taking any chances. As the rear door opened, Morrison stepped onto an alien world where he would face the deadliest warrior in the galaxy. Above him, both fleets watched and waited. Behind him, 3 million humans hoped for a miracle they knew wouldn't come. Morrison walked toward the combat arena, carrying the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. In a few minutes, he would face War Prime Kethvil in single combat. He would almost certainly die. But he would die as a human, fighting to the end, refusing to surrender even when faced with impossible odds. It was, he thought, a pretty good way for humanity's story to end. The combat arena on Kepler 442b was a circle of energy barriers nearly a mile across. Rocky outcroppings and metal debris from old mining operations provided limited cover across the barren landscape. 2 alien suns cast harsh shadows across the ground where Colonel Jake Morrison would fight for the survival of humanity. War Prime, Kethvil's transport ship, landed on the opposite side of the arena, with a sound like thunder. The biomechanical vessel pulsed with organic light as it settled onto the rocky ground. Morrison watched through his rifle's scope as the alien champion emerged from his ship. Kethvil was even more terrifying in person than he had appeared on the communication screen. 12 feet tall and covered in bioarmor that looked grown rather than manufactured. His forearms moved with fluid grace, each ending in claws that could slice through steel. Neural implants glowed along his skull, processing information faster than human thought. Weapon systems were built into his forearms, ready to fire plasma bolts that could melt rock. The alien warrior moved into the arena with predatory confidence. In over 1,000 years of conquest, no species had ever defeated a Vexthera champion in single combat. This would be another easy victory, another demonstration of Vexthera superiority to add to their collection. Morrison checked his equipment one final time. The modified M4 rifle was loaded with armor-piercing rounds. His grandfather's combat knife was secured in its sheath. The Kevlar vest wouldn't stop the alien's claws, but it might protect him from some impacts. He carried no advanced technology, no energy shields, no power armor, just the tools of a human soldier and the determination to make his death count for something. Above them, both fleets watched from orbit. The Vexthera ships formed geometric patterns, their crews excited to see another species humiliated. The human refugee ships huddled together like frightened animals, knowing they were about to watch their last champion die. A neutral communication system activated, broadcasting the formal challenge protocols to both fleets. Ancient words in long-dead languages mixed with modern galactic standard as the rules of single combat were recited. No outside interference, no mercy. Combat continues until one champion can no longer fight. Morrison walked to the center of the arena where Kethvil waited. Up close, the alien was even more impressive and terrifying. The bioarmor moved like living tissue, adapting and shifting to provide maximum protection. The neural implants hummed with power, giving the warrior reflexes that bordered on precognition. Human, Kethvil said, his voice carrying across the arena without technological assistance. You are smaller than I expected. Most species send their largest warriors to face us. Morrison smiled, adjusting his grip on the rifle. We sent the meanest one instead. Kethvil's head tilted slightly, studying the human with genuine curiosity. You know you cannot win this combat. Your weapons are primitive. Your armor is inadequate. Your physical abilities are inferior. Why do you smile? Because win or lose, you're going to remember this fight for the rest of your life. The combat began without ceremony. Kethvil moved with inhuman speed, covering 30 feet in the time it took Morrison to blink. Plasma bolts erupted from the alien's arm-mounted weapons, turning rock to molten slag where the human had been standing a split second before. Morrison rolled behind a metal outcropping, feeling the heat of alien fire on his back. He came up shooting, sending armor-piercing rounds toward the alien's center mass. The bullets struck bioarmor that absorbed most of the impact, but Morrison saw small cracks appear in the protective plating. Kethvil laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your weapons tickle, human. Is this the best your species can offer? Instead of retreating, Morrison charged forward while firing continuously. The alien's superior reflexes allowed him to dodge most of the shots, but the human's aggressive advance forced him to give ground. Morrison reached close combat range and swung his rifle like a club, striking the alien's leg joint where the armor was thinner. The impact barely staggered Kethvil, but it surprised him. Most species tried to maintain distance from Vexthera warriors. This human was deliberately closing to melee range where the alien's advantages were greatest. Kethvil's massive clawed hand swept toward Morrison's head. The human ducked under the blow and drove his combat knife toward the alien's abdomen. The blade skittered across bioarmor but found a gap near a joint connection. Dark alien blood flowed from the wound. For the first time in centuries, War Prime Kethvil had been injured in single combat. The alien's response was swift and brutal. His secondary arms grabbed Morrison and lifted him off the ground. Claws pierced the Kevlar vest, drawing human blood. Kethvil's bioarmor began regenerating around the knife wound, healing the damage within seconds. Morrison should have screamed or begged for mercy. Instead, he grabbed the alien's wrist with his mechanical arm and twisted until metal joints shrieked in protest. His free hand drew his grandfather's knife and drove it toward Kethvil's glowing neural implants. The alien released him and stepped back, genuinely surprised. The knife had missed the vital implants by inches, but it had drawn more blood from the warrior's neck. Morrison hit the ground hard but rolled to his feet, still holding the bloodied blade. "Interesting," Kethvil said, studying the human with new respect. "You fight like a berserker from the old legends. No concern for your own survival, only the desire to inflict damage." Morrison wiped alien blood from his knife and smiled through his own pain. "We call it being stubborn." The duel continued with increasing violence. Kethvil used his superior speed and strength to land devastating blows that cracked Morrison's ribs and opened wounds across his body. But the human refused to stay down, getting up after each knockdown to continue the attack. Morrison emptied his rifle's magazine into the alien's joints and connection points, targeting areas where the bioarmor was thinner. Most shots were ineffective, but enough got through to cause damage. The alien's regeneration abilities were impressive, but they took energy and time to work. As the fight wore on, something changed in Kethvil's behavior. The easy confidence was gone, replaced by confusion and something that might have been concern. This human should have died minutes ago from injuries that would kill most creatures. Instead, he kept fighting with savage determination that bordered on insanity. Morrison's final gambit came when his ammunition ran out. Instead of surrendering, he used the empty rifle as a club while drawing his knife with the other hand. He attacked with wild aggression, no longer trying to protect himself, focusing only on causing as much damage as possible before he died. Kethvil's claws found their mark, opening Morrison's chest and sending him to his knees. The alien warrior stood over his defeated opponent, ready to deliver the killing blow, but something in the human's eyes made him pause. Morrison looked up at the towering alien, blood running down his face, his body broken but his spirit intact. "Is that all you've got?" He wheezed through damaged lungs. For the first time in his long life, War Prime Kethvil hesitated. This creature should be begging for death, not asking for more punishment. What kind of species produced warriors who fought harder when they were losing? Morrison used that moment of hesitation to make his last move. From his belt, he pulled a small device that had been hidden under his equipment, a fragmentation grenade from Earth's ancient wars. He pulled the pin with his teeth and smiled up at the alien champion. "See you in hell," Morrison said and released the lever. War Prime Kethvil's enhanced reflexes saved his life. The moment he saw the primitive explosive device in the human's hand, he threw himself backward with superhuman speed. The grenade detonated where he had been standing, sending metal fragments and rock chips across the combat arena. Most of the shrapnel bounced harmlessly off his bioarmor, but some pieces found gaps in his protection. For the second time in the combat, alien blood flowed from Kethvil's wounds. More importantly, for the first time in over 1,000 years of conquest, a Vexthera champion had been forced to retreat from an enemy's attack. Colonel Jake Morrison lay motionless near the blast crater, his body torn by his own explosive. The human champion was clearly dying, but his eyes remained open, still watching his alien opponent with defiant determination. Even with his last breath, he was studying Kethvil's movements, looking for another weakness to exploit. Kethvil approached cautiously, his bioarmor already regenerating around the new wounds. The human had fought with a savage creativity that the alien had never encountered, using primitive weapons with deadly efficiency, targeting weak points that most species never noticed, fighting harder when injured instead of seeking mercy. Why? Kethville asked, standing over Morrison's broken form. Your death changes nothing. Your species will still face extinction. Why die so hard for a cause already lost? Morrison coughed, blood speckling his lips. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, but it carried across the silent arena. Because that's what humans do. We don't quit, we don't surrender, and we sure as hell don't make it easy for the bastards trying to kill us. The human's eyes closed for the final time. Colonel Jake Morrison, champion of humanity, died as he had lived, fighting to the end with stubborn courage that refused to acknowledge impossible odds. Kethville stood in silence, studying the body of his defeated opponent. According to the ancient protocols, he was the victor. The Vexthara had won the single combat as they always did, but something felt wrong about this victory. It tasted of ashes and left him feeling hollow rather than triumphant. Above them, the Vexthara fleet waited for their champion's traditional victory celebration. But Kethville found himself performing something he had never done before. He knelt beside the dead human and placed his clawed hand over Morrison's heart in the ancient salute reserved for worthy adversaries. The gesture was broadcast to both fleets, visible to humans and Vexthara alike. A ripple of confusion passed through the alien ships. Their champions did not salute defeated enemies. They collected trophies and celebrated the superiority of their species. But this felt different. This human had not fought like prey or like a desperate creature seeking mercy. He had fought like something far more dangerous, a being that would rather die than submit, a creature that became more violent when cornered instead of more afraid. Kethville activated his communication system, broadcasting to both fleets on all channels. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that had not been there before the combat. The human champion has fallen, he announced. According to the ancient protocols, victory belongs to the Vexthara hegemony. A cheer went up from the alien ships, but Kethville raised his hand for silence. However, he continued, this combat has revealed something about the human species that changes our understanding of them. They are not prey. They are not victims. They are something far more dangerous to the galaxy. On the human refugee ships, 3 million people listened in stunned silence as the alien champion who had killed their greatest warrior continued his strange speech. The humans call themselves the deadliest species in the universe, Kethville said. For centuries we have laughed at this claim. We are stronger, faster, more advanced. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. But today one human with primitive weapons and inferior armor forced a Vexthara champion to retreat. He died, but he died in a way that will haunt us. Dr. Elena Vasquez, watching from New Geneva Station, felt tears streaming down her face. Morrison had lost the fight, but somehow his defeat was creating something unexpected. The Vexthara respect courage above all else. Kethville continued. This human showed courage beyond anything we have witnessed in our long history of conquest. More than that, he showed us what his species truly represents. Humans do not fight to win. They fight because fighting is what they do. They do not surrender when facing superior odds. They become more dangerous. The alien champion turned toward the human fleet, his massive form silhouetted against the alien suns of Kepler 442b. By the laws of single combat, we could claim your species as our prize. But the Vexthara hegemony makes a different choice. We grant you not just the promised solar cycle to leave our territory, but permanent safe passage through all Vexthara space. You have proven yourselves too dangerous to hunt. Admiral Torres, listening from the command center of New Geneva Station, could barely believe what he was hearing. Too dangerous to hunt? Kethville's final words echoed across the void between the fleets. We have conquered civilizations that spanned star systems. We have defeated species with technology that made them seem like gods, but we have never encountered a people who would make us question the wisdom of conquest itself. Live, humans, grow strong, and perhaps someday, teach the universe what we have learned from you today. The Vexthara fleet began to withdraw, their biomechanical ships pulsing as they prepared for faster-than-light travel. Within hours they were gone, leaving the humans alone with their dead champion and their unexpected freedom. On Kepler 442b, Colonel Jake Morrison's body lay in the combat arena, where he had made his final stand. Above him, the human refugee ships began moving toward deep space, carrying the survivors of Earth toward an uncertain but possible future. Morrison had lost the fight, but he had won something more important. He had shown the deadliest species in the galaxy that humans were not victims to be hunted or prey to be consumed. They were something far more dangerous and beautiful. They were creatures who would fight impossible odds with savage joy, who would face extinction with defiant laughter, who would choose death before surrender, and make that choice so fiercely that even their enemies would respect them for it. 3 million humans began their journey toward the edge of the galaxy, carrying with them the memory of a soldier who had proved that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to go quietly into the night. Behind them, they left the body of their champion on an alien world. But they carried his spirit with them toward whatever new home they would build among the stars. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Vex Thera fleet traveled on to easier prey, having learned that some species are too dangerous to hunt, not because of what they can do, but because of what they absolutely refuse to stop doing. The universe had learned what it meant to be human, and it would never be quite the same again.